Hey, I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
And you're listening to the OK Connection podcast. I know, it's weird, right?
Did we turn into those people?
We've been those people for a while now. We're just figuring out how to put it on the internet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I don't want to assume that people would know what this is because, why would we assume that?
Right.
So, we do a lot of different things with this program. This is going to be the third aspect of it. So, why don't we start with having Garrett explain what the OK Connection is and how it got started, because it started with just you doing a show at RSU Radio up in Claremore.
Yeah, it was about 3 years ago, I think, and I was a music director at RSU Radio, and I wanted to play more local music on a more regular basis, so I started a show called The OK Connection, and the premise was people, music, places, and events that are somehow connected to Oklahoma. So if they're coming to play a show, or if they're a local band, or some kind of tie that could be Oklahoma, and you can tell a story that way. And so the radio show more just evolved to local music in general. Then a couple of years later, we started doing the video series of the OK Connection, where we focused more on the people, places, and events rather than the music. And so we've toured a bunch of different places of Oklahoma, and we've made a video series out of it. And now we're turning those into podcasts and hope to do more interviewee type things and stuff like that. More podcasty things.
Right, yeah. So, the radio show, and they all still exist in their three separate forms. The radio show, like you said, focuses on local music. Mm-hmm. So that's where you go to hear music and hear interviews with some of the bands that play around the northeastern Oklahoma area. And then we've done one video episode about a local band.
Yes.
We did Redwood Rising.
Right.
Who does our theme song.
Yes, they do our theme song, and it was their farewell show, so we covered them. And you can see some of those videos. Right.
So, but generally, the show focuses on, like, little places or events or things that you might not completely know about. You can find our videos at OK Connection on YouTube. Just search that, or go to facebook.com/OK Connection. Honestly, I'm assuming if you found this podcast, you've been to one of those places, so I'm not going to harp on it.
Well, and again, to advance on what you just said, is that the whole goal is to show you things that you may not know already exist.
Right.
Rather than focus on, and not to hate on these things because I love them, but like everyone knows about Canes. Everybody knows about the Circle. And as much as I love those places, there are some hidden things that people may not know exist throughout Oklahoma. And so those are more of the ones that I want to highlight, that we want to highlight, is to show that there is more than what you may think.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to, while we're talking about what we're doing and why we're doing it, I have felt like in my growing up through high school and college, there's a mentality around here that there's nothing to do. And I think one thing that we do, whether it's consciously or not, is to highlight things that you can do. And that's the whole point of finding things you may not know about.
Yeah.
Because there are things to do if you look for them.
Yeah.
So just to go over some of the things we've done in the past video-wise, we did an episode on The Outsider's House, which is amazing. Rob Lowe was just here just recently to visit it.
He visited on his birthday, which was weirdly enough the day they started shooting that movie in 1983.
Right. And I don't know when this particular podcast is going to be released, so I don't want to be too specific with dates, but the 50th anniversary of the novel's coming up.
Yep.
There's all kinds of great events going on for that.
If it hasn't already happened, there's going to be a fundraiser show at Canes.
At Canes, yeah. Danny Boy from House of Pain's throwing that together. He's been pouring his heart and soul and checkbook into that house, so we appreciate him letting us come in. Was it last year? Was it last summer we did that? Yeah, it was last year. That was awesome. Most recently, we went to Glacier Chocolate in downtown Tulsa. Got to see how they run things, how they make their chocolate. It's very cool. Yep. You can watch that video on our YouTube page. We went out to Wakita for the Twister Movie Museum.
Yeah, and that has some big significance because Bill Paxton just passed away.
Bill Paxton, yeah. He's beloved there.
And he was one of the, they have a lot of memorabilia. He would write the museum from time to time, and they had videos of him interacting with the people. So he was they loved him in old Wakita.
So you can go find all that stuff at facebook.com/OK Connection and OK Connection on YouTube. But now let's get into what we're going to focus on today, which is our most recent excursion, where we went to the Toy and Action Figure Museum in Pauls Valley.
Toy and Action Figure Museum in Pauls Valley, he says with difficulty.
Yeah. So Pauls Valley is a little town south of Oklahoma City in Norman. Well, I think it was about 45 minutes from Norman.
Something like that,
right?
yeah.
Sounds about right. Like I said, small town, about 6,000 population, give or take. I don't have the specific number, so don't anyone call me and get mad. But they've got this great toy toy and action figure museum there, which is not something you'd expect to find in a small town, perhaps.
It is not, and the population of the museum is greater than that of the town.
Exactly. There are far more toys and action figures in there than there are people living there. That's wild. And we're going to get into that. We went down there, we toured the museum. We're working on a video right now that will be released soon where you're going to get to see the museum, see the people there enjoying it. We're going to talk to the curator, an artist by the name of Kevin Stark, and we're going to play some of that interview today and talk about our experience there and talk about what it was like meeting him. So why don't we start with having Kevin introduce himself?
Well, I've been an artist all my life. At 4 years old, I knew that's what I wanted to do. My father tells the story that we were watching a special on Michelangelo and that I was laying on the floor watching it. And when it was over, I looked up at him and said, that's what I want to do. So since I was 4 years old, that's what I've been working on. So, and as far as collecting goes, I think I've always collected. I've got toys here that I had as a little kid. And I remember cleaning them with Q-tips and setting them on a shelf and, trying not to break them or trying not to let my friends break them. So I've just always been a collector.
So as you might be able to tell from that little clip, Kevin is a pretty fun, interesting guy.
Yeah, he had a whole bunch of things going in Paul's Valley.
Yeah, and not a lot of us can say that we've known what we wanted to do since we were 4 years old.
No.
But it's according to him since he watched the Michelangelo special.
And if you think about it, it's a nice little thing to realize you want to do when you're 4 years old, especially if you're collecting, because as a kid, you just get toys. And if you know that you want to do that or you want to design and you want to collect, then there's no reason to worry about, having things because you're always going to get things.
Right. And I also just want to go back and say how impressive it is to me that any type of 4-year-old would be interested in a documentary about Michelangelo.
Very true. Unless it was a Ninja Turtle.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, if it's, Michelangelo, the pizza loving sewer turtle, that's one thing.
I still really love him more than the other Michelangelo.
Right.
No, and I love them both, but
you just think of Michelangelo's work, the artist, not the turtle.
Yes. And
you go, wow, I just, a 4-year-old wouldn't be interested in that kind of thing. It's not, their kind of thing.
No, and it's very telling that that's what he liked and that's what he ended up, and he pursued what he wanted to at 4 years old. That's some drive that I have never experienced.
Exactly, yeah. And he does a lot of stuff that he kind of melds together with his art. And we're going to have him now kind of explain how he got this museum started, or rather how the city kind of gathered together to help get the museum started.
Well, the city in the year 2000 did a visioning process. A group of local citizens got together and planned the growth of the city for the next 10 years. So it was called Vision 2010. And so they identified different things they wanted. They wanted an arts council, they wanted an arts and cultural center, they wanted a theater group, and they wanted unique tourist attractions in the downtown area. Well, I joked with the committee and said I was the unofficial tourist attraction because I had all these toys that people would come knock on my door to try to see. I said, I'm the unofficial tourist attraction. We ought to make it official. I was joking. They took me serious. And so a committee was formed to find a space and to start designing the museum. And I guess I kind of headed that up with another guy, Lenny Brumley. The two of us were really the spearheads for the museum. And my collection was what provided the initial push for the museum, and now still makes up 80 to 90% of what you see in the museum. Because I'm still collecting. I have not stopped.
How cool is it that the Pauls Valley community came together and decided they wanted to pursue these ideas to make their city more interesting?
Yeah, that is very true, because you got to think, in Oklahoma, there's a lot of cities that are smaller. We've got maybe 4 real big cities in Tulsa, Oklahoma City. You could count Norman, I think. And beyond that, I can't really think of anything that would drive a lot of people there. So some of the smaller towns are trying to find ways to bring more people in. And that's exactly what they wanted. They knew they were a smaller town. They wanted to get people in. So they created the Arts Council, and they did it as a community rather than just, one person trying to drive it all. The city recognized that they wanted to try something new.
Yeah, and that's something that I think would be great to see replicated in small towns across the state and across the country. There's, no reason why people can't work to make their community more better, more interesting.
Yeah.
But I think it's an issue that we come across. Let's just get into the kind of issue of people just, wanting without doing is how I look at it.
Yeah.
Like, people want things to do, but no one seems to be really willing to go out and make it happen. And so it's a great example of a town you've very could have easily never heard of, having this great asset that now brings in people from across the world to come see all these toys.
Yeah, and it really has. So he said that it opened in 2010, and or it opened in 2005, and it's 2017, so it's a little over, it's 12 years now. And so they've had 50,000 people visit this place from every state and countries across the world. So it's done its job, because pre-2005, that tourist attraction was not there. So I would imagine they didn't get that kind of foot traffic.
No, I can't imagine either. I'm sure that Balls Valley at that point was just a town to drive through.
Yeah.
When you were heading south to Dallas or north to Oklahoma City.
And when we were there, it was during spring break, and so there were kids all over the place.
Yeah.
Families were taking the trip to this place, and I asked him if it was more of the kids that got excited, and he said that the adults were the ones that got more attracted, because the toys that they have are older.
Oh, yeah.
And so the parents would see them and remember, they had this growing up or they had that growing up. And to keep in mind, he said that his personal collection made up about 80% of the 13,000 toys. So I did the math just now as we're sitting here. That's almost 10,500 toys.
That's amazing. It's a crazy amount of toys. And I know that, when you and I and Andrew went, Andrew he's not on the podcast today, but he's one of our photographers. Yeah. We all wear many hats. But when we were there, we were amazed at the amount of toys we found that we used to have when we were kids. All the Power Rangers toys, all of the that we saw. They had a whole little Ninja Turtle kind of showcase. Mm-hmm. They had this big room. It was a recreated room. What they call it, the adult bedroom.
Yeah,
where it's just toy. You can't even see the floor. There's so many toys covered everywhere, and it looks like a little half of a bedroom. So my favorite room was the Bat Cave, because it was all Batman stuff, and that happened to be Kevin's favorite toys too. So I'm going to let him explain that.
Well, I'm a big Batman nut, so for me, anything Batman, that's what I like. So I collect a lot of the Batman stuff. Whereas I can resist collecting some things. If it's a Batmobile, I can't resist. I got to buy it. So, in fact, there were a few that I passed on, and later I regretted, and then had to pay way more money for them. So now I just go ahead and buy them, and not worry about it.
I know exactly what he means, because I love me some Batman.
You do.
He's the best. Batman's the best.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, he was talking about how he can't resist picking up a new Batmobile. I'm glad I don't have that problem, but I do love the Batmobile, and they had so many Batmobiles in there. My favorite, the 1960s Adam West, Burt Ward Batmobile. Perfect superhero car.
I don't have much to add, because I'm not obsessed with Batman like that. However, I can talk about some of the things that he did have, and he did have an healthy, both, obsession with Batmobiles. And he told us a story that he was wandering around, and there was a new, I guess it was like a smart toy thing, and there was a Batmobile, and he bought it, and he was like, I really wish they had the dark one, because it was bright colored and things like that. And so then he was walking around a couple of days later and found the dark version of the one that he had just bought, and bought that one as well. So like within a 2-week time frame or something like that, he bought 2 Batmobiles of the same thing, just because they looked different.
That's dedication.
It is
what it is.
And then there were so many different things. So you had many different variations of Batmobiles. You also noticed that he had an unopened bag of tortilla chips.
Yes.
Promoting was it 1989? Yeah.
The Michael Keaton Batman film.
Yeah. That just kind of gives you an idea of how much Batman stuff there is, and that he has in this little corner of this museum.
Yeah, and we've been posting, and we'll continue to post pictures and short little video clips on our Facebook page while we work on getting the full episode released, because I'm just excited for everybody to see everything there.
Yeah, I don't think
and hopefully are inspired to go.
Yeah, I don't think over the radio or podcast geo we can describe just how many things there are. Like, you think of a museum, and when he talked about this too, he said when you think of a museum and they were building the museum, you think of displays and you have this certain section and things on display, or there's things on the wall, and he didn't want any of that. He wanted it to be a toy museum. So you go in and it's just toys. There's the collector's bedroom, there's toys on the ceiling, there's toys on the air conditioner. Just anywhere you look, there are toys.
It's crazy because we walked in, and when you walk in, it's kind of like a small little, it's actually not very small. It's like a little lobby area where they have a gift shop, and I couldn't tell if that was a gift shop or an extension of the museum because they also sell toys.
Yeah, there were some things that you were like, I don't know if this is for sale or not. I don't want to touch it.
Yeah. It was cool, very cool. And we're going to talk about, we touched on it a little bit earlier about how people walk in there and they feel connected to their childhood and they see the toys. We're going to get into that a little more later. I'm going to let Kevin talk about it. So I don't want to do too much on that. But before we do, I want to talk about how Kevin himself as the artist, he does a lot of stuff. After the museum tour, he took us over to his gallery, which is literally like a block away.
Yeah.
And showed us some of the cool work that he's doing, talked to us about the band that he's in and that they do film soundtracks for independent Mexican films
that haven't been made yet.
Right. It's very cool and very interesting. He showed us some of the music that they've made, and it's very, very interesting, very cool to see how their process comes together.
It was the way that he kind of explained it to me is a jazz rock combination. They're a rock band in a jazz ensemble, because he said that he comes up with these movies, he gives it a synopsis, and then he gives it to the band, and then based on that synopsis, right then and there, they create songs to fill a soundtrack. And yeah, they've released some CDs. He gave us a couple of CDs, and it was very interesting to see. My brain doesn't work that way, so I don't even understand how you can come up with that idea.
No, he's just got so many things going on. In addition to the band work and the artwork, he also designs toys.
He does.
He designs them, and so he's going to talk about that for a minute.
I work freelance, and I work with a company in California, and that company, they have toy companies come to them and say, we need this design or that design. So we've done everything from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles to Zorro to The Mummy to Simpsons to all kinds of stuff. And toy companies all over the world. I've worked for toy companies in Italy and France and Hong Kong, just all over. So yeah, we work for toy companies that don't have an in-house design team. Your big companies like your Mattels and people like that, they have people that come in, punch a clock probably every day, and they just draw Batman or whatever. Well, we work for companies that don't do that. They don't have that. So they have a project, and we work per project. So, which I prefer because I have a lot of other stuff I like to do too. So,
one thing we wanted to find out from him is, with all of this stuff going on that he does, running around in his head, does any of it connect?
Yeah, because he was an artist. He's an artist. He's a musician. He's a collector. He's a designer. He does so many different things, and seemingly they would be connected in some way, shape, or form, but they're also on a whole different spectrum that they could never intersect. I mean, it's one of the two.
Well, I think it's all connected because ideas that I get on, say, a toy might end up in a painting, or the ideas that I draw in my sketchbooks may end up as toys. And I have some pretty wild sketchbooks. So yeah, I have some pretty wild sketchbooks. So, so these weird and wild guys, may end up as toys, you see.
Sure.
So there's a lot of that wild stuff there. So, but yeah, I think they're all interconnected. And to me, the imagination is always working. I mean, I never really stop. And people who really know me, they know if I'm staring off into space, I'm working on something, And my wife used to say, "Where'd you go?" And like, what are you working on? So, yeah, there's always stuff.
Do you ever get like that, where you just disappear in your own head, thinking about what you're working on?
I'm never sure that I'm never not in my own head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reality is a concept, and I haven't figured it out yet. One of the things that he talked about is how he has so many different things, and he showed us one of his sketchbooks. And he did. In the sketchbook, there were original things. You know, he had Batman sketches that he was working on. In his artwork, when we were there, they were about to host an art show that was a 3D art show. You see these works that were hanging up on the wall, and they were paintings, and you put on the glasses, and the medium that they used popped out at you like a 3D art thing. And so there was a variety of things that you could find, in addition to toys, were just surrounding his office where we sat down and talked to him.
Yep, there's toys everywhere. There's toys all over his life.
Yeah. So he's surrounded by art. He's surrounded by toys. In the back of his gallery, there was where the band plays. So everything is really connected for him.
I'm just very excited for people to see it on film.
Yeah.
It's going to be very cool. The kind of theme we've been on is how things connect right now. So, like I said earlier, we were going to talk about how people walk in there and connect with the toys. So I'm going to let Kevin kind of talk about what he sees when he goes to the museum and people come in.
We have a lot of young families, for instance, that come in thinking, oh, this is just for the kids. You know, that they're not going to care anything about it. But I mean, 5 minutes in, Dad, and sometimes Mom, is going, wow, I had that as a kid. Come here, kids, look, I had this. You know, the kids don't care what Dad had, you know, but they are reliving their childhood right there. And they're amazed that we have stuff from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, you know. Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff.
So they do have a lot of stuff, and we've kind of talked about a lot of the things that they do have, but that still doesn't convey everything that they have. So we talked about the very first thing you see when you walk in is the art or the collector's bedroom, where there's just toys all about, and it looks like a bedroom. You keep going, and in the corner there's the Batman room, which we talked about. It's the Bat Cave is what they call it. But throughout the whole museum, they have a bunch of different displays. So when we were there, they had a entire outer space theme. So there were Doctor Who toys and Star Trek toys and any kind of outer space things that you could find were in this display. In the back corner, they had Star Wars. And I mean so many Star Wars. It was like an evolution of Star Wars. There were Star Wars pizza boxes. There were, above that, there were pop culture serial characters. Not just Star Wars, but all over the place. He told a funny story where they had underwear hanging from the walls. It was superhero underwear. And he said they had to start selling them in the gift shop because so many people would walk by, grab this underwear that was hanging on the wall, and go ask if it was for sale. So they started selling the underwear in the gift shop. So again, we really can't convey how much stuff you see. And that's really what it is. It's just so much stuff.
So much. Everywhere you look. You could go several times and see a new toy every time, I'm convinced.
Yes, and he said that his personal collection, every now and then they will close to reorganize. So you'll see new things that were in the back brought to the front. He'll bring in new toys because, again, he said that he has so many toys that not everything is on display. So he'll bring in new things. So it's you never know what you're going to see with all of that stuff.
Yeah, and there's also, speaking of that, you never know what you'll see, there's a lot of great Easter eggs hidden throughout the museum. My favorite one was in there's a little G.I. Joe room. And if you look to the right, there's a Jeep with some soldiers in it. And he's got it set up like it's a battlefield. But just chilling in the Jeep, if you look close, Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's right.
He's just Spider-Man waving at you.
Yep.
So it's fun. And you can find stuff like that all over the place in there. There's literally Spider-Man swinging from the ceiling, Batman flying, there's spaceships going everywhere. It's crazy. It's too much fun. And you would think that someone with that much going on might start to think, wow, I can't, how long can I keep doing all this? But Kevin seems to think he can keep doing it for a while, and we asked him about that, and he had this to say.
I'll have to say that because I'm so busy with all the stuff that I do, that sometimes I wonder if the museum is worth all the effort and money I donate to it and time I donate to it until I go down there and a 4-year-old kid runs up to me and says, "This is the best day of my life." I go, okay, that's it. That's why I'm doing all this, you know. I love talking to the people. And I like going down there and visiting with people who are into this stuff, you know. I'm not quite the collector and nerd that a lot of people think I am by looking at my collection. But I do enjoy meeting the people and visiting with them and figuring out what they're into, you know. And yeah, we do get to have debates over what was the best Batman movie and what was the worst Batman movie. So yeah, I mean, you know, when someone tells me that Val Kilmer was their favorite Batman, I just, you know, you just want to slap them, but you know, what can you do? You know, but it's fun to get their opinions. So yeah, and really, you get to meet people from all over. And I have met people at the museum who have become very close friends. I met one guy one day. He and his wife were there, and he was had gone nuts over the place. And I just stopped in for a second and got to talking to him. And he said to his wife, "Should I go get my book? Should I go get my book?" And he went and got his book. And he had a massive toy collection. And so we get to talking seriously about toys then. Well, they became great friends of mine. When I go to Austin, I stay with them, and when they're up here, they stay with me. And you know, he's a ventriloquist and into puppets and all kinds of stuff. So I've met lots of people that have become friends. So it's been a great thing.
I love that part of the interview because you really get an idea of how much he totally cares about what he's doing there.
Yeah, and we got to see that firsthand when we were there. There's also a dress-up room for kids because he said that it's not fair for kids to have them come to a toy museum and not be able to touch anything.
That's a good point. I don't think I was there for that.
No,
portion,
you had wandered
so
off
I didn't
for
know
something.
that. That's cool.
So we were in the dress-up room, and there was a kid dressed as Batman. He was 7, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not good with ages. But he was a younger kid, and he was dressed up as Batman. And you got to see Kevin interact with this kid, and this kid was having so much fun. He got him to do the Batman voice, and you know, the kid's dad, you know, they talked to each other a little bit, and he asked if it was his first time, and did he enjoy it? And he said, yeah, he's had such a blast. And so you get to see that firsthand, and you realize, you know, that it is a nice, fun thing.
It's very fun. If you got kids, I definitely recommend it. If you don't have kids and you ever played with toys, if you were ever a kid once, I recommend checking it out. Go, you know, if you're up here in the Tulsa area, head down there on a weekend. Go down there this summer break when the kids are out of school.
It's a little bit farther of a drive than Oklahoma City, but you get to see something new that you may not have seen anywhere else.
And you know what? You could double whammy it, Pauls Valley and Oklahoma City.
Exactly. It's only 2.5 hours. It's not far.
It's not far. You can easily do it in a day. We did it.
Yeah.
Not too bad at all. And you know, now we've reached the end of our show. The end of our very first podcast.
Oh my goodness.
I like to think it went well.
I'm tired.
Well, we have been sitting for a good 29 minutes.
That's true.
And I'm hungry.
Yeah.
So we're going to go, I guess
Let's go get some Happy Meal toys.
Ooh, Happy Meal toys. Now I do really want toys. We'll end with a couple housekeeping things, I guess. You can find us online at facebook.com/OKConnection. You can find us at YouTube. I'm always
you can just search You can just search OK Connection.
Yeah, it should come up. We're also on Twitter. OK Connection 913 on Twitter, is that right?
Yep.
Or is it just OK Connection?
It's OK Connection.
Well, so you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You can listen to the OK Connection on the radio, which is a different show from this one. You will hear a different show.
Yes.
Let me stress that. There's 2 audio shows. Every Sunday at 4 and Wednesday at 6.
Yep.
I got it right. And then, the YouTube show. We're working on this. The goal is to have it done sometime in March, I believe.
Yeah, once a month. We do try to do one once a month.
So one once a month. Who do we got to shout out the Tulsa City County Library. We're recording this episode at the Central Library Makerspace Audio Lab, which is a very cool resource that has been added to the library since it reopened last year.
Yep.
So this is amazing that we get to use this. So much cool stuff. This makerspace has 3D printers, laser engraving. The whole library is very nice. So big shout out to them for letting us come out and use their space.
I feel like a professional as opposed to sitting in our living room.
Isn't it so much nicer? It's very cool. And then, of course, always shout out to RSU Radio for letting us keep talking on their airwaves.
Thank you, guys.
We always got to do that. And let's thank Redwood Rising for letting us use their music as our theme songs while we're going down the list of thank yous. I think that's everything. Is that it?
I don't know.
All right. Well, we're going to call it good right there, and we'll be back next time, whenever that may be. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Wait, I forgot something.
What? You didn't?
No, that was a joke. I was hoping that you would hit stop and it would cut off.
I've got a feeling in my soul, this weight has got to go, but I just won't run from my home. Got a ones turning against their own, but all I know is built in these walls. Some people always stay the same. Wish I could go back the way I came. Some people you can never trust. You turn your back